There was a problem. The group had planned to follow the road leading to the mountain pass, hoping to distance themselves from the site of the massacre before nightfall. However, the road no longer existed. At some point during the past months, or perhaps even just the previous day, a devastating rockfall had obliterated sections of the narrow path, making others impassable. Sunny stood on the edge of a vast chasm, gazing down with no particular expression on his face. "What do we do now?" Scholar asked, his voice muffled by the collar of his scavenged fur cloak. Shifty, standing nearby, scowled and scanned the surroundings, his gaze eventually settling on Sunny, the perfect target for his growing frustration. "I'll tell you what we need to do. Get rid of some dead weight." Shifty snapped, eyeing Sunny's fine boots before turning to Hero. "Listen, your lordship, the boy is too weak. He's slowing us down. And besides, he's weird. Doesn't he give you the creeps?" Hero shot Shifty a disapproving frown, but Shifty wasn't finished. Look at how he's glaring at me. I swear to gods, ever since he joined the caravan, nothing has gone right. Maybe the old man was right. The boy is cursed by the shadow god." Sunny struggled to restrain himself, avoiding the urge to roll his eyes. He was indeed unlucky, but the truth was far from what Shifty was implying. The caravan had been doomed from the start, and it was only fate that had led him here. Scholar cleared his throat. "But I've never said that," he muttered. "Whatever." Shifty continued. "Shouldn't we just get rid of him to be sure? He won't last much longer anyway." Scholar cast a strange look toward Sunny, his expression unreadable. Perhaps it was just Sunny's paranoia, but there was something cold in the older slave's eyes. After a moment, Scholar shook his head. "Don't be too hasty, my friend. The boy might prove useful later on." "But," Hero intervened, his voice firm, ending the debate, "we're not leaving anyone behind. As for how long he'll last, just worry about yourself." Shifty clenched his teeth, but finally threw his hands up in frustration. "Fine. So what do we do now?" The group turned their attention to the broken road, then glanced down the slope of the mountain, before finally looking up at the sheer cliff wall, scarred by the recent rockfall. After a few moments of silence, Scholar spoke again. "Actually, in the old days, there was a path leading to the peak of the mountain. It was used by pilgrims. Later, the Empire expanded parts of it and built a proper road on top, which now leads to the mountain pass instead of the peak." He looked up, his eyes narrowing. "The remnants of that original path should still be above us. If we reach it, we'll be able to find our way back to the undamaged section of the road." The group followed his gaze, feeling the unease that came with the idea of climbing the steep, treacherous slope. Everyone, except for Hero, who remained unflappable, looked at the challenge before them with uncertainty. The rockfall had made the slope less of a vertical wall, but it was still sharp and dangerous. Shifty was the first to speak. "Climb that? Are you insane?" Scholar shrugged helplessly. "Do you have a better idea?" No one had an answer. After some preparation, they began their ascent. Shifty and Scholar stubbornly carried the weapons they had scavenged from fallen soldiers, but Sunny, reluctantly, decided to leave his new short sword behind. He knew the climb would test their endurance to the limit. Though the sword didn't feel heavy now, every extra gram of weight would soon become unbearable. As the weakest member of the group, Sunny knew that every ounce he carried would feel like a ton before long. Shedding the extra weight seemed like the right decision. The climb was grueling. Just half an hour in, and Sunny could feel his muscles burning and his lungs near the breaking point. He clenched his teeth and pushed forward, trying to focus on maintaining his footing. One misstep on this unstable, icy slope could send him plummeting to his death. Just think of something pleasant, he told himself. But what could he possibly think of that was pleasant? After a moment, he began to imagine the reward that awaited him at the end of this trial. The boon granted by the first nightmare was the most important gift an awakened could receive from the spell. Later trials would offer more abilities and power, but it was the first one that determined a role an Awakened would play, the extent of their potential, and the price they would pay, not to mention providing the necessary tools to survive and thrive in the dream realm. The primary benefit of the first Nightmare's boon was simple yet crucial. Once they completed the trial, aspirants would gain the ability to perceive and interact with soul cores. Soul cores determined a person's rank and power. The stronger the core, the greater the growth of their power. Nightmare creatures also possess soul cores, and unlike humans, they could have multiple cores. A lowly beast might have one, while a tyrant like the Mountain King could possess 5. The only way to improve one's soul core was to consume soul shards, scavenged from the bodies of other dream realm inhabitants. That's why the Awakened risked their lives fighting powerful nightmare creatures. The second benefit, though less direct, was just as important. After completing the first nightmare, aspirants were elevated to the rank of dreamers, or sleepers, and granted access to the dream realm. This occurred on the first winter solstice after passing the trial, and they would remain there until they found an exit, becoming fully awakened. That time between finishing the first nightmare and entering the dream realm was critical for training and preparing. For Sunny, that time was only a month, an extremely short window. Then there was the final benefit, which was unique to each aspirant, the first aspect ability. This magical power elevated the Awakened above ordinary humans. Aspects were diverse, powerful, and unique. Some were categorized as combat, sorcery, or utility, while others were unimaginable. With their abilities, the Awakened had saved the world from nightmare creatures. But this power came at a cost. Every Awakened who received their first ability also gained a flaw, a counter to their power. These flaws ranged from mild to crippling, and in some cases, fatal. Sunny couldn't help but wonder what kind of ability a temple slave like him would get. He wasn't optimistic about his prospects. The possibility of an undesirable flaw was overwhelming. Perhaps, if he was lucky, his aspect would evolve at the end of this ordeal. Or even better, change completely. If an aspirant performed especially well, there was a chance their aspect would undergo an early evolution. Aspects, like soul cores, were ranked based on power and rarity, starting from dormant, then awakened, ascended, transcendent, supreme, sacred, and divine, although no one had ever witnessed a divine aspect. If the spell has any conscience at all, it has to give me at least an awakened aspect, Sunny thought, hoping for an ascended one. There was also a minuscule chance of receiving a true name, a title bestowed by the spell on its most favored Awakened. It had no practical benefit, but every famous Awakened had one. A true name was considered the mark of excellence, but only a handful of people had ever received it. Sunny didn't bother with thoughts of excellence. He just wanted power. His mental wanderings helped pass the time. But when he looked up again, he saw the sun had sunk much lower. The air had grown noticeably colder. At least it had distracted him from the torturous climb. Night was coming,